Discover how AI is transforming the way we understand language and connect with the world. Today we're joined by Joao Victor Pessoa Rocha, a linguist and NLP expert pioneering the use of AI to analyze sociolinguistic trends in Brazilian Portuguese and other languages. From ethical dilemmas to career advice for aspiring innovators, this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss, so stick around. This is PhraSEOlogy plus AI with your hosts Felipe and Miguel Santos. As a digital marketing professional specializing in SEO for over 20 years, I've worked with companies from startups to the global Fortune 500. Learn how to gain an unfair advantage with AI as we uncover tips, tools, and strategies. I'd like to introduce Joao Victor Pessoa Rocha, a Brazilian Portuguese linguist who's not only passionate about languages, but also on a mission to shape the future of language through AI and NLP. He's a tech-savvy linguist with a diverse skill set that bridges the gap between linguistics and cutting edge. So with that, I would love for you, João, to tell everybody a little bit more about you that I might have missed or anything that you feel folks would get value from.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the invitation, Felipe. Very pleased to be here talking to you. Yeah, so that I have experience with corpus and computational linguistics, and that means dealing with large data of language. Also, I've worked with data annotation, a little bit with chatbot. I have a master's degree in linguistics, and I specialize in computational sociolinguistics. And I have a podcast too. The name of the podcast is Langbite, and the purpose is to chat with other linguists who are working in the industry, more in the industry of AI, technology, and language. And I ask them career questions so that they can help other linguists to follow a similar path. And not all linguists want to do academia. So that's to help them figure out.
That's awesome. We're going to actually have your podcast linked at the bottom of the description for this interview, because that way folks can find you and also pay attention to your episodes and really get into it. Now, I'm sure we can find other linguists, but pretty impressive background, I have to say.
Thank you.
João, how is AI revolutionizing the field of linguistics in your opinion?
Well, I've thought a little bit about this question, and I would divide it into two answers or two like topics. First of all, in academia or in research, I think AI is changing the way that we do research because with computational methods, statistics, computer science, NLP, AI, we are having more methods, more data, and even more accuracy because we are dealing with more precise measurement. And because of AI, we are also having new things in new approaches. For example, some professors and researchers are transitioning to AI-oriented research attempts. For example, I've seen a couple of professors presenting how AI discourse differs from human-made discourse, or what are the difference between AI-generated and human-made text. I've also seen how AI can speed up the process of data annotation that's mainly done manually. So I think for research specifically, is doing all of those things. More methods, more data sets, more themes, more approaches, and that's good, but we have to be careful with it anyway. Now, considering the industry, considering basically the tech industry, I would say that AI is changing everything, mainly because now everybody wants to put AI in their product, even if the product doesn't need AI. Everybody wants to put AI in their product. So yeah, and also I would say that most, if not all, language-based products are being AI powered. But I have to say that sadly, in those cases, companies don't hire linguists yet, and that should be something that they should consider anyway. Also, new jobs are emerging. For example, my job, the title of my job is conversational AI analyst. It didn't exist like 5 years ago, or maybe like 3 years ago. Now it does. So I think also AI is revolutionizing linguistics in that way because now we have key analysts, we have chatbot creation analysts, we have data annotators, we have additional linguists. So all of those new jobs for linguists, mainly, they are very new. And that's why not every linguist knows about those jobs. So I think that would be like a summary of how the AI revolution is within linguistics.
It's interesting because I think a lot of the conversations I've had with other experts,
I've come to the same conclusion, which is because AI seems to be delivering so much value, or it kind of like gives the impression of delivering value, and that's being integrated into so many things. Companies and hiring managers sometimes don't realize that you still need proficient people, linguists, to actually come into the mix and supervise these processes. So that's like kind of interesting that the new roles are coming out, and they of course have to have AI in them. But in reality, maybe that will also change and revert, and then AI will just be a subset of the types of skills that you have to have, the ability to use the tools, similar to other occupations in the past. But I love to hear that. I think that gives people some broad range in terms of how things are being affected here.
And I think having, with a broader term, language specialists, having language specialists helping making the product better, not only you can improve the let's not say quality, but the performance of the AI into the product, but also you can make your users or your consumers more drawn to the product. And I have had this experience like whenever you put the language of, for example, a chatbot nearer to the language of the final user, probably they're gonna come back and use the chat. And that's done with the help of a linguist.
Very cool.
Companies
Love
hire linguists.
that. Well, it's every role. I think whether it's linguists, it's marketers, it's designers. A lot of people feel like they're not needed anymore because these technologies can do a lot of things. But in reality, there's still so much to review. There's a lot of imperfection, a lack of uniqueness in the work that's done from strictly AI tools. And it's not ready for prime time by itself. It needs a little bit of help. And I feel like over time, it'll still need a lot of that. It'll just get better. But there's going to be different areas where a human still needs to be in the loop.
And we have to remember that especially generative AI on the right based was written on the if you need to have a new idea or a new style, or you are going to invent a new product or something new that, for example, something very original, maybe the AI will be able to write it, the human to complement.
Yeah, I love that point. That's a really strong one. Because clearly, I think you need something to exist for it to be trained on. I think that will start to become faster, right? Because once they have better web access and the ability to do quicker research, that may happen, but it's still going to lack that certain stimuli that we have.
We have creativity,
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about NLP, right? So how is NLP being used to create more sophisticated AI models? Because we talked about how AI in general is being integrated, but how would you classify that?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, NLP is natural language processing, and it's basically for how we can process language in order to have an out, for example, Google Translate or Alexa, system, agents, those type of things. I would say that first of all, NLP data set very highly important for AI
Mhm.
because especially the classification data set, for example, term detection, topic identification, like morphological classification, like verb, noun, adjective, they are very important for AI. And we have and those type of data sets, they can be fed into an AI so that it can make the task more rapidly and it can do more automatically. So for example, if you have a lot of NLP data sets like that, especially the classification one, you can fine tune a generative AI so that it can learn the task and then the performance would be better if you do the high with those type of data sets. And we have NLP libraries, for example, in Python, like PhraSEOlogy. PhraSEOlogy is a Python library in which you can do a bunch of things with it. You can do morphological classification, for example, the verb, noun, adjective. You can do syntax classification. It is the subject, the object, it is the component of the verb. You can do name entity recognition. So for example, João Victor is a person, so João Victor, he will name entity. And those type of libraries, they can help the AI making better decisions. Because for example, when you're doing topic identification, they the same syntax and morphological classification, they can improve the accuracy of the model to identify the topic. So that can help as well. And all of the NLP data sets, the NLP libraries, help to create a virtual assistant. And that, because as I said before, for example, morphological classification is not the goal, but it's a mean for a goal, and it can help improve accuracy. And first, you can use it to make more accurate translation, to retrieve information. So basically, I would say that for language-based AI, NLP is necessary. It is at the basis, it is the foundation of AI model, or at least it should be.
Oh, I loved how you mentioned Python because that's a perfect segue into, I think, how folks in data science and obviously how marketers are trying to approach things. So, like in your work, how do you leverage AI really to analyze this vast amount of information, especially from text data? How have you used it? I think folks would benefit off of understanding
Mhm.
how you apply it.
Well, now we have something that we call conversational AI. The principle of it is that we can talk, can converse with it, so that we could, and it can be multimodal with it. And that means we can send audio, text, files, images, and that's wonderful. In conversational AI, we can say that it can read different type of files. And currently, at my job, I'm dealing with a great amount of longer text answers from users. So basically, we are asking them open-ended questions, and we would like to have a summary for the main topic or the main issue, because most of them are negative answers. We would like to know what are the most negative or the most dangerous topics covered in those answers. And in that particular case, I had to create a prompt that could read the file. It had like an Excel spreadsheet. I had to create a prompt that would do the comments that I needed for the analysis, but it is also possible, and we are tracking that possibility to create our own model that would classify the answers according to the criteria that we have. So for now, it would be basically prompt engineering, but I have also in another job, I deal with a lot of data and we would do simple analysis. We would do a little bit of Python with, for example, word cloud, the distribution of data according to each category would be a little bit of that.
Do you find yourself using more off the shelf products or do you use more in house products or kind of a mix?
No, I would say that we would get like out of the house product. For example, we
Yeah.
use OpenAI AI to help with.
I think that's a simple way between like using OpenAI or Anthropic or Perplexity. I think they all kind of offer their benefits and some of them have a different user interface. It's a little easier to work with. So yeah, very cool. Now, this is a very tricky part and I think will continue to evolve over time, but what are some of the ethical considerations that you think surround AI and language specifically, so especially since you're a linguist?
That's a very dangerous question. But I would say that the first thing it would be language because basically the AI products are being created based on English and for English. So we have to ask ourselves which languages are the products focusing on or why are most of the languages out of the market? So for example, when we have products for English, Spanish, maybe a little bit Portuguese, but Portuguese even less than Spanish and English because of learning. But why, for example, British, Spanish, or French, whatever language, they are out of the market or there isn't any AI product for that particular audience. And also, I'm referring to low resource languages, for example, indigenous, aboriginal, and also finally, as of now, we only have very good AI model for oral languages, a language that can read, but there isn't any really good AI model for sign language. That's something that we should think about. And also, the second issue that I would like to highlight is copyright. Even before AI, rights are a very delicate and very dangerous issue that you can explore and what you can do with it. When AI came, we didn't know that we could have so many problems with copyright, and we have to ask ourselves another question. Writers, journalists, publicists, linguists, or researchers have known that there were that were an AI because, for example, probably with OpenAI model, they didn't have the permission to put the text as input for the model. And that happened some time ago that the New York Times has ended actually and OpenAI take out the New York. And then when we think about jobs that deals with writing, journalists, publicists, marketers, CEO, sorry, SEO, analysts, they have their own style or they adapt their style to the company or to the problem that they're writing about. People that are fed into an AI or they are used as input for an AI. Would it be fair that their competitor has the same style as them, they crack their style, and then their competitor would have the same style because they got from an AI? So then it would be something there who I believe that's unfair. And also related to language, and not exactly how we can, how people can use language, how we command, how we use different command. So the first thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about those topics is identity theft. And if we command to a model say, I want you to talk to me as Michael Jackson, or I want you to talk to me as Katy Perry, or I don't know, like Obama. That command, ethical, right, legal, funny. I don't have the answer to that, but at least we should think about would I be comfortable knowing that someone can use my voice or my style or my dialect, and I'm not involved. I would be a little bit worried about that. So for me, those are my three role parties that related to AI and
Those are really good points because, like you mentioned, the use of anybody's voice, apparently all it takes is like 15 seconds. I think recording on either OpenAI or there was another 11 labs, they actually also take in voices and can do things that are pretty amazing in
yeah.
like 15 seconds.
I don't know if you've heard about it, but there is a very famous actor that did the voiceover for the audiobook for Harry Potter's audiobook, and then someone used his voice, and then he made a lawsuit about it. And I don't remember what is the result of it, but probably he has won. But then we had to think about someone was doing their job, like doing a voiceover for an audiobook, and then someone used it for something. Either
And audio is easier than video. So even though deepfakes are out there and deepfakes are getting better, the audio problem is even worse because that's easier to get your hands on. And it's very difficult to disprove, right? Just imagine like how much you have to do to say that that's not your voice when it sounds so close.
yeah.
Yeah, kind of fascinating. There's so much to this, but I think understanding customer sentiment and preferences, specifically through language, matters here. So, how can AI be used for that?
I think for this type of situations, you can go in many directions. It really depends on the budget that you have, the type of team that you want to build for your company, and if you want to get something in-house or you want to hire out of the company partner or you can, the company can create their own classification. For that, you would need to have a data set that is related, and for that, you would need a team of annotators, basically linguists, and a team of engineers for the modeling part. Or you can have like a visual linguist that could be like a interdisciplinary team, and they can do the engineering part as well. And this type of approach is more time consuming, but you are more certain or you are sure that it's related to your business problem. Basically, you're gonna get a large data set that are example of what the customers are saying. So if it is Amazon reviews, probably you will get a large data set of Amazon reviews that already exist. They're already there on the website. Then you would annotate, for example, negative, positive, or the person would buy again, or the person is complaining about the product, and then it would be more related to your business problem or the business idea. But again, it's more time consuming, and depending on how you manage, it is more expensive as well. But I like this type of approach, because then and you can adapt the model however you need and however you want, depending on the problem or the issues and questions you have. But the second approach that is possible as well You can use an already made model, such as ChatGPT, or you can use Perplexity or Bistro or whatever other model that you feel that is suitable for your problem, and then you can put prompts that include the classification. The problem with that approach is that the model can hallucinate wrong classification, or if you have a question rules, you can have only one label, and then one message have two or more labels. That can be very confusing to follow the algorithm rule. And I'm saying the model like that model through prompt. And depending on how you write the prompt and what your idea is for the output, you can control the format of the output. Depending on how you're gonna use the output, that can be a problem because then you won't have a pattern for you to calculate equal code for example, what you are. Or you can use then you would use the large data set, then more classification with the data annotated, and then you use that data set as an input for an AI model. And probably, very likely, for the AI would have a good department for the computation or any other task that I think will be engine for.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Let me ask you then, based on that, do you have any examples of how businesses can use like NLP specifically for marketing and advertising? Because I think that's a big area where folks regularly have to operate, right? Do you have any clear examples on how businesses can use that?
So first of all, I think people in marketing they can do social media, for example, they can check the sentiment, they can check for toxic words or maybe not toxic, but negative words, positive words, or they can see what is trending and create a good job with that. But the first task for marketers would be that monitoring how the social media posts are behaving and what people are saying about the company, the product, the service. We can also go into product reviews. We can run a scheme for business analysis on Amazon reviews or there are Etsy because we don't have Etsy here in Brazil anyway. So you can do Etsy reviews and then you can help businesses or your company can write or something that is ready to be proven about the product. Also, we can get from automated models now with generative AI and some of the NLP models. We can generate and personalize marketing for email, ads, social media, blog, YouTube descriptions as well. And it can save time, money, human resources. Also, you can do some personalization. Here, with generative AI, you can get like a lot of contact, maybe not a lot, some contact, and you can ask the AI to write something based on their contact. So we can customize email based on the behavior of the user, and then you can increase how many times the user is gonna click or it's gonna go to your website. An example of that would be what Amazon does. So Amazon use NLP for audience segmentation and personalized ads. So for example, you can see that whenever you choose a category, Amazon, for example, beauty and fashion, and then you don't buy anything, but you're gonna look through the things that they have there in that category, and they're gonna send you an email section about beauty and maybe some discounts that can be done by analyzing your behavior and preferences, and then deliver something that maybe you wanna hear it or you wanna read about, and then Amazon goes, okay, that's like
That's a good example. Amazon is great because there's so many products. And you also mentioned Etsy, like folks that are running their small shops off of Shopify. In your opinion, based on that, is it relatively easy for a smaller company to also get involved in some of this personalization? Or do you feel like it needs a little bit more of a established team, even with AI in the mix?
I would say to start with this type of, I don't think you need a lot of people or a bigger team or even a lot of money, but I would suggest that you have good I've seen cases. I know a CEO of a company, a Brazilian company, and he has just a few people in his team, and now the company revenue is more like 4 times, 5 times than it was here. Then you can say, oh, but he put 4 or 5 people there. But still, 8 people is a short number for a number of people at the company. So I would say it really depends on the type of people that you have. If you have, I think you should have people for different purposes. For example, one engineer, one linguist, one customer success person or representative, or and a marketer, people that have different roles so that can for everything. But I don't think you may need a bunch of money. Of course, you have to pay those people. So you should have money to compensate them. But I don't think you need a large
That's fair. Yeah, because I think a lot of companies and let's say startups and small businesses are kind of just wondering how to make the most out of their teams and leverage AI in the process. But that it's good that you can actually get these tools and get access. And I think one of the main things that I've heard from a lot of my interviews with experts is that having a plan, understanding where your data is coming from, mapping it out, and then like working with professionals inside of your company and maybe some outside if you need them, then you can get a lot further along with using AI properly and then having it catalyze your work, right? So make more of less and be a stronger team. So that sounds like pretty much what you're saying a little bit here, right?
I think, as we said, you should have a plan of where I am now, how I think I'm gonna do it, and where I want to go. Otherwise, you will get lost and you're gonna do a lot of things at the same time, and you won't have any result. And a direction that is related to the business problems that you have at hand. And maybe you don't need to use generative AI for everything. If you have
Mhm.
someone who can do the work, you don't have to waste a lot of dollars in open AI focused performance depending on the task that you do.
And obviously, like you mentioned, generative AI is one element of this, but for the background, for understanding how you're using your data internally and how to use it across multiple systems, you might just tap into machine learning, right? You might turn into some semi-automation using AI, whether it's generative or categorizing technology with machine learning. So I get that's why you need the pros. You need people who understand which technologies to use for
Yeah.
what purposes, so they're not getting terrible results and spending a lot of money on something that should be relatively easy with the right
Mhm.
experts at
Yeah.
hand, right?
And even if you get bad results or the results are a little bit off what you want, very likely that the professional will know what, and then they can work on the solution and it's
Yeah.
too easier. And honestly, I would say even ethical, let them work.
Obviously, your passion resonates very heavily because I mean, you're in this space and you love it. So I guess I wanted to ask you, what excites you the most about the potential of AI, especially the potential of AI coming soon for language-driven businesses and language-driven work?
So as I mentioned, I think it was from your first question.
Mm.
I think there's a lot to do with research in general because now you can have new approaches, new data science, new everything basically. And we have to remember that science and technology they work together. So we should also think about how science going forward and how research institutions or companies that have research, how they are dealing with that. Probably they are gonna bring out the innovation for the industry. So we have to think about that as well. But now going to product wide choose or topic, I would say that we would have personalization and not only personalization but at scale. We can do that for a lot of people at the same time. We can have personalized experience. We can understand people's preferences, behaviors, NLP, web breaking, and other technical. Right? Companies can tailor their communications, their offer, their content, and that might result in higher engagement and satisfaction. I also think if we think about chatbot, we could have enhanced customer support because then if we have more accurate, better, and sounding more natural chatbots, then we could have our customer success analyst 24/7. And then we know that this is gonna be cheaper. And if we get you a high level of responses from the chatbot, probably people would feel satisfied because then it's gonna be 1 a.m. I have a problem. I talk to the chatbot and then it solves it. And I'm gonna be real, if we had like a human, probably we would have to wait until the next morning to have whatever we need to have solved. I also think that we would get data-driven insights. And I think this is even before the boom of it, that some companies have that. But now we are complementing the data insights or the data-driven insights with linguistic skills or linguistic data.
Mhm.
And that can help, and NLP can help businesses to analyze vast amounts of unstructured data. We say that a text is unstructured because it's not, for example, a table, it's not a spreadsheet, it's not a matrix, not an array. So it's unstructured. So we have like customers' reviews, social media posts, support tickets, and we have to extract valuable insights from it. And using NLP, we can do that, for example, with sentiment analysis, topic identification, toxicity identification. So all of those processes can drive the business strategy, decisions, improvement, and marketing. And also, I believe that with AI, we can have more accessibility and global reach. We can do what people call internationalization or globalization, so that we can do AI powered translations, localization, and those type of tools. They can help business reach more people. We can break down language barriers, and they can have more people using or buying or taking advantage of their product. And that expands market potential. That could be very nice as well. And that would be an example for deep Google Translate. There is another one. Language 2, those are trilingual businesses, products that they are invented or they are created for those type of tasks. And finally, and this is something that I have to tell here, is that if we think about the potential of AI for language-driven businesses, I believe that one of the good things that's going to happen, and I hope so that's going to happen, is that linguists are hired, so that we can help with the development of the language of the company, and we can offer any type of technical insights that we need to give in order to have a better performance of the models.
I love that. And it's funny because it immediately made me think about slang and think about the creation of new languages. Because if we have linguists working on AI and AI is generating transcripts or generating content or understanding how to translate content from one language to another, do you feel like the very human thing of creating slang and changing language is going to happen also through AI? Or do you think AI is not going to, it's going to be mostly human powered? Because I kind of see AI also, if it becomes more able to use its trained data to generate new phrasing and have some kind of planned hallucinations, I think that could also change language over time. Don't you think?
That's a very nice topic. I would say that the generative AI models, they are based on the past. So one of the things that I think can happen is like, for example, someone give me a list of slangs, and then it's gonna give slangs from past decade, and maybe like a very old slang can go trendy again because of AI. So that can happen. But I've never thought like a invention of slangs through AI. So that's a good approach as well. And that can happen, especially now that more and more people are using, and people from Gen Z and I think it's Gen Alpha now, the new generation, Gen Beta. In the next few years, they're gonna use even more. So yeah, it can happen. The slang generation, you can have what I said before, like old slang comes up again. And I also think that it can help the AI learn about the current slangs as well. Because with most of the generative AI models, whatever you put there is gonna be in the training data cycle. So if I put something like that, oh, I have this expression, it is a slang, and it means this, and that. Then it's gonna learn, and whenever someone else asks, what does this slang mean, they probably gonna explain something similar. I hope you can have that too.
That's kind of cool. I know that probably can be its own discussion because you have to think about the different variables about who might ask these scenario questions. What happens between languages? Like, will this multiple trained languages allow somebody to create new slang? Or, what's the cycle of slang? How long would it last in being brought back into culture? But there's a lot there.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is an interesting one because I think as people go forward and new AI technology is released and it improves, a lot of people might be watching this and thinking to themselves, well, what skills could be essential or needed or interesting for someone who wants to work with language and language technologies, especially with AI? So what would you say are skills that are kind of essential to that?
So I think I would divide my answer is being like when you are someone who is a linguist, someone who is not a linguist and you wanna do it, and someone who is going to manage all of those two people, the other two people. So as a linguist, I think the first thing that you should learn is about statistics. And funny enough, most people go to linguistic programs because they don't like math. At least here in Brazil, that's what happened. And I entered my linguistics program because I didn't like math. And then I become like a computational linguist, which is the area that use more math in linguistics. So I would say learn statistics. And at least for now, the most famous and the most used programming language is Python. So learn Python as well. And when you think you have a fine level of statistics and Python, I would suggest you to make some projects, like side projects. You have a lot of in Kaggle, GitHub, Hugging Face. Choose one that calls your attention, then do it. So I think for linguists, that would be it. And of course, you are a linguist. So you need to have your linguistics technical knowledge very on point. That should not be discarded as well. You just have to add new skills. For someone who is not a linguist, for example, someone who studied marketing, or journalism. That's a little bit harder to do. And even someone, for example, from engineering wants to learn linguistics. And that's because you have several computer science courses in different platforms. You have on Coursera, uh, DataCamp. We have one here in Brazil, it's called Alura, but you don't have as many platforms with linguistics courses. So that's going to be a little bit harder. But I think the name is edX, which is a Harvard platform, if I'm not mistaken. And they have some good linguistic courses there. You can search for textbooks. Maybe you can join our research group in linguistics to get a little bit of what linguists do when they are analyzing language. Because the way a journalist or a marketing person analyze language is very different from how we do as linguists. It would be nice for them to learn how to do the linguistics analysis. And for someone who is going to manage those two types of people, do not diminish their work. Because I feel like sometimes managers, hire managers and the company in general, they value a lot the engineering work and not so much the linguist work, saying that it is less than what the engineers do. But I would say that the linguistics work is I would say the most important one, because without, for example, the data set, you can't do the model. Without the classification, you can't do the model. So the linguistics team is the one that does this type of work. So don't diminish what they are doing, and be sure that you are giving opportunity for both of them to transition. Some of your engineers wants to learn a little bit of linguistics, and some of your linguists want to learn a little bit of engineering or computer science. So that can be a good transition to do within the company. You have a more coherent team, because then everybody will know a little bit of everything. And of course, those three types of people should develop their soft skills. How to sell themselves. I think communication is key. I'm a linguist, so probably I'm gonna say that communication is very important. So make sure that you are very clear, concise, objective. You know how to give and how to take feedback. I also would say make sure that you're humble, but you can show off your accomplishment. Because I think, at least in Brazil, there is this mindset that we should always be humble and we should not celebrate our accomplishments because other people might feel bad. But I think, like, no, if I did something, I will celebrate and I will tell someone that I did it, especially in your workplace. It's important. For example, you can get a raise or a promotion.
Yeah, very well said. And not to say that kids are listening, but take that as a lesson, kids, because like you get into any occupation, especially now that AI is in the mix, you're going to be doing more math than you realize. So it pays attention to those STEM classes. Pay attention to like what you think or what you've heard from others, from adults that are interesting here. Because I know that when I got into marketing, I did not think I would be doing so much math, but the reality of between all the spreadsheets, the calculations, the automations, and also just calculations of like ROI or some of our metrics from analytics, there's a lot more math than people probably thought. And definitely more than I thought was involved in the process. But you have to just love it and appreciate it and grab it.
Exactly. There is no other way. So
Yeah,
just do it.
Very true. And I wanted to ask you, based on that, because we were talking about educating people, upskilling people, getting folks comfortable with AI skills, what do you think some of the major challenges and opportunities are that exist in AI? I would probably say more challenges in AI and linguistics.
I would say on the personal level, and I'm not saying personal level for everybody, I think it can be hard to find a job as a linguist in the tech industry for several reasons. First of all, there is no consistency with the name. So, for example, if you're going to look into LinkedIn, you're going to have several names that you can look for for a job. Another reason can be companies yet don't know the value of linguists in-house. So you can find a lot of freelance jobs. There isn't much full-time jobs for linguists for now, at least. Maybe in the future, there are going to be more. But the challenges here is, and thinking about the product itself, I think would be balancing, like doing trade-offs, because sometimes you want the chatbot, for example, to talk a certain way, but because of the devices, the models that you have available, it's not completely how you think it should be. So then you have to do a trade-off. Okay, so I'm gonna get the most out of these things that I have in order to get what I need to have. So the trade-offs are very important. And I think we also should consider what we are doing with the models that we are building. Because I don't think just because you can, you should. So there there are some AI models that I'm like, should you have done this? I don't think so. If you're a linguist, for example, who is a business person, maybe you're the owner of the company, try to think really hard about what your product is going to be, who the product is talking to, because we have to think about the sociolinguistic tendencies of the product. Because, for example, depending on the product that you're selling or the service that you're selling, you're going to have a narrow audience. It's going to be that they're going to have a certain skin color, a certain amount of income for a specific country, specific age span. So you have to think of all of those things. And not only who you're talking to, but what your product is going to be. And that's a challenge that I had a few days ago at my job, because we are building a chat interface and you have to think about who is this person going to be? Who is the virtual assistant going to be? It's going to be a woman, a man, what age, what sexuality, what profession, what income they have, where they come from. So you have to think all of those things because they influence language. And I don't know if AI models we can have so specific personas with AI right now, at least. Because, for example, there isn't much data sets telling us this is how a woman talks in English. But then we would have to have like This is how a woman from North Carolina who is 70 years old, who is a Christian, has a undergraduate major, has a PhD talks. It has to be specific. So that I think that will be a great problem in the future. Maybe now, but people don't are not thinking about that right now, business owners. So maybe in the future they're gonna think about that and see how difficult it is.
Good point. And you kind of already started talking about this. So my next question was going to go into that a little bit more and ask you about some quick advice that you have for young entrepreneurs that are trying to develop AI powered language tools. Is there anything that you would tell them in addition to what you already just did about how to make better language products using AI for a business purpose?
I think on the business side, try to do as much benchmarking that you can. Try to find similar products or products that you find very interesting that are language related, of course. And then you can see what are the problems, how you're going to fix the problems, what are the best part of that product. But on the technical side, I would say as soon as possible, when you are hiring, for example, an engineer, also hired a language specialist, try to hire them at the same time so that you can build a culture in which humanities and engineering people can work together, because sometimes it can be very separated, like the linguists do their job and then pass it on to the engineering. But I think it should be something more coherent, something a little bit more seamless. So I think you could do that by hiring those two types of people from the beginning and then have them work together as much as possible. And then when you are hiring more people, this type of culture is going to be already installed in your company. And I think that will help a lot.
Sounds good, Jerome. And I'm actually thinking now that you said that, it feels like story time. And what I mean by this is because there's so many different ways this can go. I would love for you to kind of imagine a world where AI perfectly translate language, pretty much any language. How would this change communication in society? How would you envision like this kind of future?
Okay. So the premise here is that AI can translate everything perfectly. And then, of course, cultural expressions. So I would say a lot of people would lose their job because we have translators, interpreters, even facilitators might lose their job because sometimes they do also language facilitation. Perhaps some language schools will be closed as well because depending on how fast this AI can translate the languages, I won't need to learn the language. So I can say like, hi, my name is João Victor, translate to French. It might translate to French like in a heartbeat. But also then taking from that, I think it can make us, and I'm gonna use a very strong word, but it can make us dumber, if that's a word. Dumber or more dumb? Dumber. Anyway, because we, or not we, but some people might lose the interest in learning a second language or a third language or a fourth language. And there is scientific evidence that when you learn additional languages in general, your brain functions better. You're less likely to have Alzheimer, for example, or dementia. That would be very awful for us. Also, I think what I said before about global reach in companies. So companies can do that more consistently, more rapidly, so that they can press a button and then all of their content can translate from English to Japanese, Chinese, Canadian French, Brazilian Portuguese, Colombian Spanish. So it can be very fast and it can be very profitable for the companies to do like that. Also, I think it can help reaching other people that now are unreachable. For example, I said before about the Aboriginal, indigenous sign languages. They are not on the same group. Then we would be able to communicate with them because of this type of, that would be very helpful, especially for human development, research, and also just like human connection itself. Because, for example, if you go to some indigenous communities in Brazil, we don't know their language. Like we don't have written register. Their their language is not linguistically described yet, like technically described. So we don't know what is a word for them, what is a phoneme, what is a sentence. If we have this kind of technology, then it would help us to connect with them. If they want to, maybe they don't want. I think also that it really depends on how this AI would be deployed. Because, for example, if I have to say, my name is João Victor, translate to French, or press a button that is to translate to French, that can be one thing. But then, for example, if I just have to think and then the AI will translate, I think this could be more dangerous because then you can be like a mind reader, but on yourself, and then that might not be good. So, yeah, it really depends on how this type of technology would be deployed by people or used on people. That would be my answer.
That's a good answer. And of course, I like to always think about both sides of the coin. There's the negative, which is very real, that jobs will be lost or at least converted. I'd like to think of it more as like the energy principle, that energy is neither destroyed or created, but just simply transfers. If that's the case, then new jobs, new ways of doing things will happen. But we've also seen some evidence that over time, people have been getting a little dumber just because we have access to things quickly. We don't have to study them. We don't have to learn them fully. And sometimes even figure out how you go back and you figure out a solution now is almost a loss to some degree if you're not in that occupation. And I think it was like much more common for folks to be there. I really wonder how we're going to move things ahead. I think that's a discussion for probably ethics and how we're going to control AI's growth over time, because it can be let to grow in the wild and that could be a very bad thing, or it could be controlled and guided, which could be a better thing because at least then we'll understand the confines of the technology and we can make it what we want it to be. I love that perspective. That's really good to kind of think about that and what would happen. I still feel like people are curious. So they may be dumber, but they'll be more curious to explore and maybe interact with cultures and maybe be more comfortable with it instead of being shy and fearful.
Yeah,
There's that potential.
it really depends on how we use it.
I agree. That's why it's kind of a story here, because if nobody knows, but we can at least start to put those ideas out there and
Yeah,
folks can think about it the way they want to think about it. Look, I wanted to, first of all, thank you so much for coming on here with me, talking to me about all these things, covering it from a linguistic standpoint, and also kind of summarizing a lot of things that people can use today, I believe. So thank you first and foremost.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to like kind of encourage everybody to follow João because he's got a lot of good information he's putting out there. He's trying to share whatever he's coming across with folks in, especially I believe LinkedIn. But I'm going to give it to you to kind of talk to people about this. And I encourage listeners to kind of like follow and connect with João to get more into the world of AI and language. So with that, I guess João, take it away and talk a little bit about how people can reach you.
Yeah. So for everybody who wants to connect with me, so I'm super available. You can contact me through LinkedIn, and then we can see where the conversation is going. On LinkedIn, I post sometimes. I'm trying to have more frequency of posting, but I post sometimes text about my analysis on how AI is changing linguistics, or how linguistics is changing AI as well, and issues that we are having with computer science, because sometimes computer science doesn't listen to linguistics. Anyway, I have a podcast targeted at linguists or any language specialist who wants to work in the tech industry as a language professional. I interview people about their journey, their careers, their educational background, and tips for newcomers to the industry. You can follow there, subscribe, comment.
Awesome. So at the end of this video in the description, you'll be able to see all of this detail, but it'll be a little easier pulling from there. But last bonus, I guess this is a bonus section here. João, real quickly, like I'd say within like the next 3 minutes, tell me what your top 5 tips or pieces of advice are for folks that are listening.
Oh, okay. So the first thing I would say, don't think a language is only a type of data. I think people get mistaken that language is a type of data, but it's not only data. In the way that we think that a computer can play things and do something with the data. When we are talking, when we are writing, when we are communicating, we express a lot in the words that we are saying. We express our identity, our cultural background, where we come from. Probably like native speakers of English have a different accent. And that's because I'm not from an English speaking country. So that would be the first thing. Second step, it will be open-minded to new approaches, to new perspectives, new methods, to new skills as well. And this is actually for the humanities people. Sometimes we can be a little bit conservative concerning the type of skills that we have to have. So we are a little bit more reluctant to learn math, programming, coding, data science in general. Try to be a little bit more open-minded for those type of skills. And the same for computer science. Try to learn a little bit more about humanities and don't undervalue the type of work that we do. The third and final tip maybe is top three or top five.
We can do top three.
Okay. Then the last one, it will be don't use AI just because everybody uses it. Try to, and I'm gonna say like generative AI because you can have other type of AI. Maybe your problem is much simpler and can be solved with much simpler approaches than what has to do with generative AI. You have to hire OpenAI, you have to hire Microsoft Azure, you have like a database for the AI responses, you have to have like an interface to build the prompting. So it can be a lot of work for something that can be solved with simpler approaches. But if your problem needs AI, generative AI, just think it through. Is it really necessary? Or I'm just doing because everybody's doing it? Yeah. So we're
Love it.
right here.
Appreciate it, João. Thanks for being a good sport. I really appreciate you coming on today. And yeah, we'll speak soon.